everybody did.
Oh,
We're live. All right, so this is,
Pardon.
Senate Appropriations Committee, and we're taking up H 72.
this is 706.
Uh,
Can I get a fiscal note from? I don't have it.
The clerk's file is so large.
I found it, never mind, never mind. I know that Hannah is very organized.
Yes.
Thinking about change.
So I'm gonna ask the, chair and, Health Walker and the presenter, of the bill, to run through this bill, with us and, relate to the in reference to the funding and making sure that anything that we have in the budget, is, crosswalked with what's in this bill to make sure that we haven't spent the money different ways, and we've got the right language in the right place, and while we're using the opioid abatement special fund. So, we can ask Nolan to testify as well.
No, Nolan will clarify the exact
Okay.
changes
All
that.
right, so if you wanna just give us the framework for the bill, which I gather is quite different than.
It is different. Overall, it allows for Burlington to apply for a grant based on specific criteria so that Burlington can establish an overdose protection center. In addition, any of the criteria and guidelines for the grant and the center will continue for any other opioid protection centers. So in order to have the OPC established, there's money involved, obviously. So in the bill itself, there's $1.1 million for the city of Burlington for a grant for an opioid protection center. And let me just say that the reason that we focused in on Burlington was really related to the testimony we heard from not just the centers that exist in Canada and US, but also from our Department of Health, talking about the need for these types of centers in areas of greater population. And Burlington has already had a vote at their city council. There's a huge support for this to happen. I don't know whether they have a site or not yet, but they're working on that. So the $1.1 million would be available for them after the guidelines are established by the Department of Health, and the city of Burlington has applied for and approved the grant. There is $300,000 in additional to have a report back and a study of the prevention centers, whether it's just one or others in the state going forward. And that is over a period of time. I don't remember exactly how long, but I'm trying to remember. Michelle's at 5.
Yeah, it's a 5-year.
5-year study.
And then, but the interim reports back to the general.
Yeah. And then, in addition to the money for that, the syringe services money, program money, was placed into the bill. This is extra money because it's already in the budget. So the syringe services are already in the budget.
So what about the 1.1 for the, centers themselves?
The 1.1
Needs to,
Is in the budget.
is in the budget. It's also in the bill. The 300,000,
could you tell me
I don't know where it is.
what section? Maybe you can.
I don't think the 1.1,
I don't, the 1.1 and
No.
300,000 are only in the
they're
bill
only in the bill, they're not
because of the
budgeted.
opioid abatement fund. So it
Yes.
doesn't have
Well,
necessarily.
we have opioid settlement funds that we've appropriated, so I don't remember that this $1,000,001. So that is still available to support this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So section 2, if we need to, if we want to approve this pilot, that money needs to be appropriated here.
yes.
Okay.
yes.
So the 1.1 and the 300, neither are in the budget. The other appropriation, the 1.45 is.
That's for the, needle.
That's the syringe, the language that's in the bill, I think is also in the budget, I hope.
Well, the section 7 is, I
Yes.
believe.
Okay. That's it.
Page, which is on page 9
Yeah.
of the bill.
That's in the budget.
You just.
So that needs to come out of this.
Yes, it does.
Otherwise,
1.1, yes.
yes. Section 7.
No, no, yes.
We delete section 7, and then and what that does is, instead of putting the opioid abatement fund into the red, if we take that out, it will keep it, solvent. Not red. We won't have a double.
So what we have here is, a bill that would, sanction a pilot,
Yes.
in the city of Burlington, that has already supported the siting. This, would, allocate, would appropriate 1.1 of the opioid settlement money, to, fund the grant to, support this OPC. In terms of the language about syringes, we've been doing that right along with the existing HIV, organizations, then we added more money. And we have distinguished between existing and new. And then, would have to delete section 7 because we've already done that. So the two appropriations are, section 4, which is the 300,000. For funding and study
And that one is also in the opioid abatement fund. I don't think it's in the budget. I don't think it's so does. There's a 3,000.
The 300,000 and the 1.1 million are only in this bill. So sections 3 and 4 are not in the budget.
So they need to, only 7 needs to be removed,
Correct.
if I understand it correctly.
Yeah.
And, there's money in the settlement fund, based on the spreadsheets that have been done, to,
You will have 1.2 million on the bottom line when you remove section 7. If you leave section 7 in, then the fund's in deficit.
but what, I thought we funded, how did we fund the 1.45?
Well, I'm double counting it right now, that's why. Right now it's double counted. So that's why. I've accounted for it in the spreadsheet in the budget.
So if Brattleboro wanted to do one after they see Burlington, there wouldn't be the money for it.
They could meet the guidelines that are coming out by the Department of Health. And then if money is available.
That's my question.
Yeah,
If we're using all the money for Burlington, then there won't be money for another community like Brattleboro. Am I correct?
Not this year.
But they wouldn't be doing it this year anyway.
No, it would be for they'd have to apply for next year. They could apply for a grant.
Well, I thought you said the money was gone
No, there's 1.2 million on the bottom line.
this year.
But
Yeah.
yeah, at the end of this year, as long as you take out section 7.
And there's always money coming in.
Correct.
The opioid settlement
Thank
fund.
you,
It's-
I misunderstood.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So we didn't want to foreclose any other municipality or city doing it.
Not, so I have some other questions. about
yes, go ahead.
Bill,
Uh-huh.
and if I might, these are really judiciary issues. The immunity provisions that all came from our Good Samaritan law years ago, am I correct? Is that what you're using?
Based on that, yeah.
Okay, so I want to understand. On page 3. And we can do this in judiciary if the chair would prefer. By just holding up the bill for a few days.
Well, a few days might be tough because,
Well, we have a weekend coming up, and we have tomorrow. I was thinking of next Tuesday or Wednesday.
you mean voting that.
Or I don't mean taking possession, I mean
Oh.
looking at the immunity provisions.
Okay, yeah, if, assuming it comes out of here, we'll let it go to the floor and then we'll pass over today if we need to.
So it'd be on notice.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, and then Tuesday.
Would be up for
we can
action.
Decide what to do, yeah.
If you pass over it on Tuesday.
Yeah.
and-
And then do it Wednesday.
To do it.
Yeah,
second.
I wanna make sure the judiciary committee has a you know, because this is our part of the law.
Sure.
All right,
I'm not
And
opposed to,
that's part of why we've been told this bill is important, because it provides that immunity.
yeah, but,
Um,
well, I guess the research would be, what are we immunizing and what are we not immunizing?
I can talk to you about that. whenever-
That would be, I don't think it'll take a long time, but I just think the committee should be comfortable with what we're immunizing, and not immunizing. I don't wanna be immunizing a kilo of heroin coming into this, I know that's
No,
not the
yeah,
intent, but
But
I wanna make sure we haven't done that inadvertently. You know, the house is apt to do any of those things.
Michelle's been really helpful.
I know.
um,
the big issue.
So we'll take it up next, try to, I'll rearrange the agenda and take it up Tuesday if you're a bit.
I assume I probably go anyway.
Yeah, but well, even, so, it's all about section, I guess it's little c,
It is, page 3, the
page
following.
3, and then
third
going
item.
over to page,
Yeah.
down to, well, I don't care about the study of the, but going through 3.
The immunity provisions on line 12 keeps going down to line 17.
Yeah, or 9, yeah, so,
17.
So, well, okay, yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
fine.
So, are you finished now? I'll move to Senator.
Yeah.
Carr. Okay.
Well, the issue that I think you ought to really look at is we have a methadone clinic up in Medford. And we've had, I believe, at least 3 motor vehicle crashes of people leaving there and death resulting. And I think the big thing that you should look at and we should understand is if they're gonna go there to the safe injection site and they're on some drug, there should be some way that they can't drive away from there. And within a certain length of time,
well, they're obviously impaired,
pardon?
they're probably impaired.
Yes, and if they're immune
Therefore,
from,
but that's what I wanna look at, is
well. if
make sure they're
there's-
not immune from getting in a car, driving and killing someone.
That,
I don't think they are. I think it's just the possession of the drug that they're immune, but I wanna make sure.
is all I wanted to.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's a good,
And we,
Connection.
you know, we obviously talked about a lot of this, but I think Michelle has done a good job in helping us through it all. And, yeah, and then looking at the information that's come from other places that have done this and how to put the fence around the problems, and actually,
Yeah.
problems have been mitigated.
Well, part of our problem in Bennington County is people have to travel for the methadone.
That's right.
And when they travel together for the methadone, they often end up not getting methadone, but some other drug.
That's the bad part.
well, that's right. And of course, if you live in a rural town, you're probably not going into Burlington City.
No.
On the other hand, we've heard, for example, the public transit provider, the difficulty that they've had in Burlington, really, people are using the restrooms, the needles, the, whatever, so, you know, the risk of the general public, the, you know, the consideration of that as well, I guess, is something that, people have found very, very disturbing. And what's happening is the general public doesn't feel comfortable using public transit or using the buses as a result. So it has kind of a collateral impact. Now, the extent to which this initiative will address that, I guess, is something the study and experience will show. So what we have here is 2 appropriations that would be funded out of the opioid settlement money. It's accounted for in the spreadsheet. It's not in the budget itself, the 300,000 or the grant that would go to to the city of Burlington. So that's what we're, obviously going to be, looking at and taking, a vote on it. Senator,
Yeah, I was just gonna remind people that the opioid settlement advisory committee, this was their number one recommendation for how to spend that money and affect the problem. And I don't think, we're all at our wits' end about the problem. So I think turning to the people who are the experts, taking their number one recommendation, and we're being very cautious about it. It's one community to get the data from it and see if it works, at which point we could think about something else. But just speaking as somebody from Burlington, I can't tell you how many times I've had people complain to me about needle waste, medical waste, as well as public safety issues. The data that I've seen from these sites is that there's an effect community-wide in the space around them where that medical litter goes dramatically down, calls to the first responders go down, deaths go down. So at this point in the epidemic, I don't think anybody in Burlington thinks this is not something that they want to try.
it's not gonna promote addiction,
Right.
because, it's there and at a level that
Right.
it's very concerning. The,
No, I do the photo.
so, the evidence base from a public health perspective has been long established, but it's more, obviously the other considerations and sometimes, or people find it reluctant, or it's an acknowledgement of situation that you really don't wish we had to acknowledge, to be honest. Senator Wagner.
I would, Burlington has a problem, like a lot of other places in, all you have to do is be downtown. I, at this point, would be reluctant if it was beyond Burlington, because Burlington has services that other places in the state doesn't have. And I would have been a no on this, except for the work that I think you've done in your committee to pare this down to a place where there are the services to deal with this.
Other instant purchase.
If the study is 5 years, is the 1.1 million for
They'll have to
5
come
years?
back, they'll have to come back and ask for a reappropriation, absolutely.
So this takes us through 3 years of operation?
No.
1.
1 year plus the 3 is for 5 years.
The 300, yes, for 5 years, right, and then the
Right, that's what
1.1.
the money for the study is, but the 1.1 only gets us through 1 year, so each year it'll be a.
But
ongoing.
it's like a number of things probably, once you establish it, and I think that's one of the things the advisory committee has got to remember, is once you put this in place, you are really pre-authorizing, because you can't say, oh, well, let's use our money for something else next
No.
year, because this commitment has to continue. And so I'm sure that that's not lost on the advisory committee. But this is not something that the state is gonna be able to pick up and say, oh, well, let's let's ask for an appropriation, because this is because we want to use the opioid prevention settlement money for something else. It's, once we do this, I think that we need to make it very clear that we're accepting the recommendation, but it's also with an understanding that we're committing the funds for a period of time so that we can adequately get the data, see what the evidence, have that experience. So I don't know how we communicate that, but it's.
I think we communicate it very well, because the opioid settlement fund, while it's replenished every year, disappears. So the goal is to put something and things in place, established programs, or have them in place in the 15-year period, more or less, where we're receiving funds that make a dent in the problem. So,
So
maybe we will.
I just want to be clear, is that we're moving this in, it's a longer term, it's not just a single year
Yeah.
commitment. And
Right.
so I'm just saying we're accepting the recommendation, but with it is also an understanding that for the next 5 years or whatever, this is gonna have to be one of the uses of that settlement funds. That's my only point.
And I think that's inherent in their set of recommendations.
Yeah.
That, they're,
Yeah.
they see themselves as committed.
I'm not assuming much of anything anymore, so I
Yeah.
guess, is that you getting dinged or me?
It's you,
Because it's not mine.
So can I ask
Oh,
Michelle,
Bobby's good.
can I ask Michelle to
Yes.
weigh in just a little bit on this one?
So, hi, so for the record, Michelle Childs, opposite Legislative Council, I just wanted to clarify, so the report, the final report is due to the legislature in 2029. The funds are being appropriated for FY 25, and then it's gonna take some time for Department of Health to adopt guidelines, and then for Burlington to submit its grant proposals, so the study in terms of like future funding is, I think the max is gonna be 4 years, even though it's like 5 years before you get to report it.
All I am trying to communicate is, this is not a one-off, 1 year, recommendation for funding, and then we'll say, oh, well, we want to use the opioid settlement for something else. If we're gonna initiate it, it's with the understanding that we're obligating settlement funds over multiple
Is
years.
there some way that we could put that language in,
I don't know.
that it's understood that this is a non-event?
We can't obligate future.
Right.
We can't, yeah, no, we can't, and also.
The reason I'm so concerned about it is that we see so often when a program or a department gets a grant or an organization
So,
and it goes away, and then they say, well, this is wonderful, and we want to have general fund for it. And so I'm just making it clear that if this is a top recommendation, comes with it an understanding that this is something that they're committing to over a multi-year period of time.
so the opioid settlement money, but I don't see why we couldn't put something in there that it's expected that this will be funded.
Well, I guess you could put in some intent language.
In
that,
town language, and then it would automatically come up when.
Well, we can't necessarily bind the future legislature, that's the one thing. So, Nolan, you had a question?
Yeah, if I may just help add into this, for the record, Nolan Langle, the Joint Fiscal Office, there are other costs in the fund that are looked at annually. So last year, some of the stuff that are in this year's budget are things that were in last year's as well, but they were based on one-time recommendations. And each year, you go through and you're saying, okay, let's do this again, let's do this again. So I sort of look at them as one-time appropriations that are often renewed annually as you look at it. So,
Without even being mentioned.
yeah, I mean, like, so you're renewing, like, a lot of the things that the fund is paying for is things that were recommended in 24 by the committee, the advisory committee, such as telehealth pilot, fentanyl strips, etc. Those were recommendations for the fiscal year 24 budget. They've made their way back in the 25 budget. So I think it just becomes part of the budget process, as Senator Kitchen was saying, next year.
I just see if you're starting a pilot project and you're doing, and what we're doing. I don't know whether we need to put it in any kind of intent, but I think we inherent in approving it, we're envisioning that this is a multi-year obligation of funds from the opioid settlement.
Yeah.
And because you're not going to abandon it after year 1 or year 2. Now you can say, well, obviously they're going to renew it. I would think that would be the case. I'm just simply saying that, if that were not number 1 on their recommendation next year, that would be very, very troubling. And my intent is not to do a 1-year one-off, to be honest, if we're gonna move this forward. So that's all I'm trying to put out there is, this is not like sometimes you get repetitive things, but if this is really to do a pilot and it's really to evaluate the outcome and the impact and learn, then that to me carries kind of a different dimension than maybe some of the other ways in which we, allocate money.
So would intent language that this continue be appropriate. I know intent language is different from obligation. But would we want in here to put intent language that would ask the opioid abatement advisory committee to consider appropriations until the pilot program finishes its
I
work?
guess we could have some kind of intent that, in making, approving this
Yes.
expenditure, it's with the,
But it's not, so the money for the money for this is, we'll take out section seven, because that's already in budget, and then the money for this is in the opioid fund, and that, I agree with you. I mean, the goal is to keep it funded until it completes its work. So
we
the
could,
intent language makes a lot of sense.
Well,
Well,
the intent language, correct me if I'm wrong, would just be directed at us. If we're, because
Where was your next?
they're just giving us recommendations, no matter which year
Yeah,
it is.
the advisory committee.
So it's always our decision, but I think there's zero disagreement around the table that we are committing for a multi-year period to this. And since we're gonna make the decision every year, intent language seems a little like we're tying a string around our own finger.
Bells and suspenders.
But I'm happy to do it if it makes people happy. I don't know what it changes really.
well, I get the reason, because certainly we've got the advisory committee and people tend to want to, respond and take the, recommendations and so there's, I don't know, sometimes membership changes, sometimes priority change, and I'm just saying, we're setting ourselves down a path, and with that is a longer term, kind of activity, so, to me, in light of some of the discussions we've had around, what we intend to do and funding and trying to go back and look at the legislative history, I'm just thinking maybe 3 years out from now, this is something that still needs to be, continued and, it wouldn't be bad for, whoever's making decisions to remember that there was kind of an obligation here and then understand.
Well, you're right.
That's wrong.
No, you're right, because the advisory committee did have it as number one, and yet it wasn't put into the Department of Health didn't bring it forward. So having intent language might be,
So maybe we could get something like that, you understand what we're asking for, and I don't know if you're the person to write that.
Well, I think I would be, but I haven't never written anything like that before, so I think so you're looking at. Something in here, session law on intent. That the money that is being appropriated, the $1.1 million for the pilot. The intention is that the legislature will continue to fund this.
For the duration of the
Of the study period.
Yes.
Because
from the opioid fund.
From the
We don't wanna pull it out of.
No, from
Yeah,
the-
Because the study has that, I just assume that $300,000 that's set for the term of the study is for the whole time for the study. It's not for $300,000 each year
Yeah,
of
no.
that study. So that's only, you're talking about the money going to the pilot project itself until the study is completed.
something along that
Are
line.
not studying. The pilot program is complete.
Well, there's not really other than the appropriation, there's not really necessarily, so
But where would more from a pilot to something ongoing, I guess, is, yet to be determined, right? Or is this, you can have a pilot in perpetuity, I guess.
Well,
But normally you don't.
the overdose prevention center guidelines will continue. We'll get, when the report comes back, we might wanna see that some of the criteria change.
Is there anything around the timing here? Not so, my only concern is that we just have some, articulation that we're moving forward with this, in order to, pilot it, to get the evidence, to really see how it works and the outcomes sometimes, things don't work out as well. Maybe we're not following the evidence base or whatever. So I just think that if we say we want to we want to implement this, and we want to pilot it, and we want to study it and see what it does. The inherent in that is we're doing something more than, a single year. That's just really all I'm saying. We can say until completion of the study. If
So
that
to you,
timing
there's
works,
nothing in the language currently around that, because the first section that, the statutory section in section 1, it laid out like the framework for what is an overdose prevention center, what qualifies it for the particular immunities and stuff. So it's kind of the enabling legislation to take away the barriers that would prevent them from operating and requiring the Department of Health to adopt the guidelines. Then the session law pilot project is really just the appropriation to the Department of Health from the opioid settlement fund that is then designated specifically for a grant for this to the city of Burlington, but there's no, other than, it's for FY 25, there's no kind of parameters.
so there's really not a good benchmark in the future to tie this
Right.
to, is what you're saying.
Is the study for a certain one?
The study is the final report, is due to you in January of 29, and the Department of Health is to be providing annual interim kind of updates to the General Assembly during that time. But there's obviously no clear start date for the project, because it's going to be dependent on the Department of Health is required by September 15th of this year to adopt its guidelines. And then looking to those guidelines and section 1 and the statutory language that's in here, Burlington will put its grant proposal together. They have to get approval from city council, and then they would submit it to Department of Health. And then Department of Health is gonna.
Maybe we could do something. Our intent is to provide, have the funding to support this pilot for a minimum of 3 years or something like that.
Okay, I'll put something, I'll get your essence of where you wanna go here, but without a lot of specifics. How about that?
Well,
Sounds good.
that's fine. It can always, things do get modified as we move along. I just think it's good to have an articulation that
Sure.
we want to have a full benefit.
Sure.
Sometimes things have a way of getting disrupted or priorities change. And we'll be on a different administration, to be honest. Potentially 3 years out.
Might even have a different room here.
Yeah, we might.
In 4
So,
or 5 years.
So,
Individual.
we're going to,
We all done spending money.
I want to finish this up and
Get home.
because what we're gonna do is then move it here and then pending some kind of language, or we can do it later. I'd like to move this out today.
Yeah.
And knowing that Senator Sears is gonna take a look at it, particularly the immunity
Just
section.
the immunity.
Yeah.
I want to limit it.
I can go and work on an amendment for you.
All right.
Send it to Hannah.
Yeah, that would be great.
I don't want to get beyond immunity.
So what we would do is, at a minimum, because of the money, we're gonna delete section 7, that appropriation. Because we've already done it in the big bill. And if you could just give us some intent about, if you wanna do this for a decent period of time so that we can get the full benefit of the plaza. Okay, all right, you want to, pending,
He already did it.
oh, sorry. Our clerk is ahead of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, she seconded
Who seconded?
Lions.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right, our clerk is anxious to move us
I'm
along.
not anxious, I just knew what was happening.
Yes.
Yes.
Lions.
Yes.
Yes.
Birchland. Sears.
Yes, for that.
Well, write it down. Star.
Patience.
Yes. That's when Jess Kitchell. And the reporter.
I think should be, Senator Lyons.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we'll, wait to check it out once we get it. Okay. So now we're gonna move.
I voted yes. Because I want to see how it works. It's for a limited time and hopefully this current opiate crisis and the sick that I've lived through twice. help with these types of clothing.
Well, it's just like in Burlington, this will be a pilot, Burlington, this service is like other places don't.
It's statewide, nationwide.
Yep, it's fine.
Expand.
What's scary is that methamphetamine is making a comeback in Burlington.
That is
area,
terrible.
Which is, and they're all laced with fentanyl and.
Xylazine.
Xylazine, so we have a huge amount on our campus of many things that need to deal with. That wasn't my explanation.
Yes, so,
That'll come in.
You're right.
Explanations get longer.
so I'm gonna
Well, I'm
move
not
on,
ready.
I'm gonna move on to H 847. And this is a peer support provider and it's certification, of a,
Street piece, and you get.
yes, I have the bill, I have, the
Yeah.
fiscal note. And
You'd probably like to read that before you. vote.
And the outline.
an outline of what
Yeah.
everyone should have three,
Oh, you only have three?
everyone should have three.
He doesn't have any.
I don't have any. Senator Birchlick has his computer.
Okay,
Would
Yeah.
you like three?
No, I can.
so, Senator Wise, are you the reporter of this?
I'm not the recorder, but I can share with you that.
If you would, that would help, we could perhaps move this out too.
And we've been working on this for a while, and this comes, peer support providers are folks who work in recovery centers with people who are in recovery and they need some support services. Sometimes it's people who are in, having not a relapse, but having some behavioral
Yeah, I've been
mental
to,
issues.
there's a lot of them in the recovery centers.
Yes, so so it's recovery centers, it could be clinic, it can be just about any place where a certified support, peer support person will provide care and conversation and help for someone who is in need. The work that's been done on this over the past session or so has resulted in a certification process within the Office of Professional Regulation. And so now there will be a registry for peer support folks. And they will pay a fee and be registered and certified with NOPR. And initially, there will be some startup costs to this, and I think that's the $25,000 in startup time. And then following that, there will be fees, initial fee of $115 a year, and then we'll move to
So we have certification now, it says,
move from 115 to 50, and then it will go up to 75. So I just said that.
so we have, you say 116 certified specialists, so we have a certification process now. And so this
As is
was,
currently in statute, so yes. But we don't have certified support, recovery support specialists. We have certified peer support providers and recovery support specialists. And Katie, correct me if I'm wrong, we currently have recovery support specialists, because there is a difference in.
yeah, and we have 116 according to down at the bottom of the sheet here. So if you want to come up, maybe you can help us.
Yeah, that would be
what this is doing. Is this to deal with the peer support providers?
Both.
Yeah,
Katie McLean, Office of Legislative Counsel. So the bill creates a certification process for peer support providers and recovery support specialists. It's a voluntary certification, so there are people practicing in these fields now. They could continue to practice in these fields after the bill is passed. They couldn't call themselves certified unless they went through the certification process, but it allows people to receive a certification or continue on as they are now.
So, down at the bottom, it says we have 116 certified recovery support specialists working in recovery centers. Who issues that certification?
They wouldn't be certified
they're
now.
not.
What says it?
What, are you looking at a bill or
It
something?
said,
Look at my fiscal
no, it says,
map.
according to the Department of Health,
It was a term that is used certified, but there's no. Not
no,
certified, but
no, a sort of official,
that was my understanding.
okay, it's more of a,
Yeah, they haven't been certified.
not in the way.
They
that-
call themselves certified, but not.
Who are they, sir?
I don't,
I'm sure. Let's see.
This would create an
You're
OPR
certified, let's
certification
just
process.
Yeah, you're certain.
you don't like it.
I have to
Just
certify
to give
myself.
somebody a job.
There's continued demand for certification training. But that's under,
Okay, so maybe the word certified was ill used.
okay. Well, you can have a certificate of appreciation, I suppose you have a certificate of completion. It doesn't mean it has the same
No.
gravitas as some kind of an official, standard,
Yeah,
so,
I'll fix that.
okay. That's where we're getting confused.
Sorry, that's,
So this bill carries no appropriation.
so
Just fees.
if I can, for the record, only I'll talk fiscal office. In the budget, you appropriated $67,000 OPR.
My question, is that included in it?
Yes,
Okay. All right, this is not in addition to what we did.
you already counted for this.
What
All
about
right.
$2,000 in fiscal year 26?
How much?
2,000
Okay.
per diem compensation.
What about that, Senator?
And just covered if you maybe for the committee to
$2,000.
summer
You
committee.
spend a lot of time with people.
The Department of Health, I guess, or who, no, Secretary of State would have to cover that out of her operating budget, OPR budget. Well, maybe that's part of the 25,
No, but
but in addition to,
it's 2,000 is pretty nominal, so they can cover within their budgets.
all right. So we've actually anticipated, this expense, and it's part of that 67,000. There were a couple of others, compact, associated costs, so,
Was it 60,000?
67, yes, in the budget.
Or
To the office of, to
OPR.
Secretary of State, OPR, to, help with the startup of, the,
Okay.
compact
Yeah.
of those two occupations, as well as apparently this is part of the 25,000 here. Other questions of Katie while she's here, because I know she's got plenty to do. All right, so, do we want to have a motion to move the bill? All right, Senator Baru. Second.
Clerk doesn't know that time.
Boy, that pen is just a flying.
I'm surprised that wasn't already written down. Because you just. Yeah, there's these slipping over time. Slowing downwards.
It's amazing what you forget.
Senator Lyons. Senator Lyons.
Yes, yes.
Senator Sears.
How come you didn't do Baru?
Senator Starr. Senator Westman, yes. Either one of you want to vote?
Yes, please. Yeah,
How about,
yes, I would like, thank you.
and Senator.
We only have the franchise, we're in its good grades.
And who's reporting?
Senator Lyons.
Now that I know what's in the bill, it's amazing.
Thank
And you read the bill and you're at 104 billion plus, you forget all the details. And Martine Rule. I mean,
I didn't know we were doing the tables and chairs in the cafeteria. I thought we were just doing,
Remember Sears' speech about
I
chairs?
thought we said we weren't doing
Yeah, I don't
more important things.
do.
no, we were saying that, then we were talking about how the design and the layout of the cafeteria. That I think is a major concern. All right,
Do you want me to have the chair? No, in the chair.
well, let me ask David, are we putting the 100,000 in here? I thought it was in the capital, I thought it was already in the capital.
It is in the capital bill. For the record, I'm Damian Leonard from Legislative Council. The reason it's going in here, Catherine Benham caught us. We historically have appropriated these funds to the Sergeant at Arms, not to the General Assembly. It's a technical change. You could also ask Senator Ingalls to just make it. I put it in here because you've got it, and I just wanted to bring it to your attention. Historically, these appropriations have just gone to the sergeant at arms, that's all. All it does is change General Assembly to sergeant at arms, 2 places.
That's general.
What's that?
General fund money.
No, it's bonded money. So, and we did this.
Bonded money.
Yeah, this is bonded money in the capital bill. It's capital dollars in bonded section.
Probably because the tables and chairs will last more than 20 years.
Yeah, but
I mean, the ones up there, I think are
whoever
results to
buying
me,
a
so.
kitchen set and charging it.
Maybe for sale, like at the auction.
Well, I'm sure the institutions committee must have thought of that. The question is, do we feel that that's an amendment that we should be making, which is a technical amendment, or whether we should ask the committee to make the correction?
Make them do
They should do their own work.
Well, we oftentimes.
They're
have
so busy over
incorporated-
it.
I would move this.
That was a cool
I,
mistake.
I,
All right,
all
right. Please look at the back page, which is really what we wanted.
Yeah,
And Senator Sears and I, so we shortened it quite a bit, and thank you for your draft.
you did. Appreciate the editing.
This, this language
Yeah.
is interesting in one way. So on line 5, it says, cannot be sold unless it's determined that the site cannot be used as the location. It's hard to imagine a situation
Oh,
where,
cannot is not needed, perhaps is better.
or isn't preferred. You know, in other words, I'm sure it could be used, but is the decision to use it or?
Yeah, we just wanted not to have something sold and then look back and say, oh, well,
We shouldn't have.
we shouldn't have.
I think this basically says it
It's
can.
cannot, I thought it was all one word, but maybe it's not anymore.
So there, it's actually, it can be written either way.
Uh-huh,
So
so,
they're interchangeable. They
I
mean the
see.
same thing. I wrote it this way. Word did not like that. But the editors left it in. So, I've always used it as one word when you're adding emphasis and as 2 when you're,
okay. More benign.
but, maybe will not be used.
Or, you know, has determined that the site is inappropriate as the location for a new state facility, or is not
Or
preferable.
other state use.
It's other state uses. It could be a transportation use, for example, a
I'm-
central garage. I
I'm
don't
just
know.
saying, cannot be makes it
No,
sound like if it could be, then it must be.
No, that can't, cite that.
Yeah,
Any state.
Well,
that's a good point.
so do you have a suggestion?
Yeah, I
The
would say
site,
has determined that the site is not appropriate as the location for a new state facility,
not, well, it might be appropriate
or
for
is not
one use.
preferable,
It's not needed.
or is not needed.
Or the land is no longer, that's the real issue.
Well, the
We
site
wanna
is
make sure
land,
that the
so,
site is no longer used,
So how about is not needed for use?
not used, not needed for any state use. I mean, I'm just trying to get away from.
and it might not even be a new facility.
I'm
It
just
could be
trying to
a
get away
state
from the house,
facility.
giving the
I don't,
land away.
cause if there's some building there that you might wanna use, it doesn't have to be new, so.
It is the house.
So
Why?
unless the state has
don't
determined
you-
that site, is not needed for a state. For use as a state facility or others, not using use choice, but.
Or other state purpose.
Other state purposes, yeah.
Yeah, so what I've changed it to is, has determined that the site is not needed for use as a location for a state facility or other state purpose.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Great, I will make that draft 2.1.
And we'll go with the tables and chairs.
I sort of.
I think you did.
Is there a second?
Okay.
I have to say, I think buying tables and chairs is like moving tables and chairs on the deck, because the cafeteria is so ill-designed,
Yes,
and you can't get through to use the chairs.
You can't
Well,
go through the table.
But we did get the
Yes.
email that I forwarded to everybody saying that the whole design of the cafeteria is something to speak
That's
to you.
part of the other work that's
Yeah,
going on.
yeah.
But
I understand that, but it,
Maybe
don't go up there on a busy day.
you have to bring. your
I
own
never go.
chair.
You have to bring your own chair
That's what-
practically.
Bring a
There's
folding
no
chair.
chairs.
All right.
I did bring my kids, because then people give up their seat. for me.
Nice.
It's a little trick.
Oh,
It's bring young kids who look overwhelmed and suddenly.
Apparently doesn't work
seats
for
open up.
older people,
No.
because I haven't, no.
Does the
Okay.
state repurpose those chairs? Cause we
No, they're probably
don't know.
Yeah.
go to surplus.
Access program.
Yeah,
They go to,
But you go there and buy stuff for $5.
no, we'll give you as a going away present, Bobby, we'll
Get
give
a
you a
chair.
gift certificate to surplus, property. We did that for Steve Klein.
$25.
$25. And you get a cafeteria.
Oh, you get a pass free.
Yeah, okay, so we have a motion to
Fairs are gonna
move.
give you a lifetime.
Nobody seconded it.
Sears did.
Did he?
Yeah,
Never
okay.
heard
He
of it.
did,
So,
because that
committee,
was his amendment on the
I hope
back.
so.
Okay,
Bruce,
Yes,
Lyons,
yes,
Birchley,
yes, with explanation.
Sears, Star,
Yeah.
Westman's, yes, Mitchell.
yes.
Just for everybody's knowledge,
I've been going.
That
in Senate Judiciary, we have the clerk. We have our committee assistant read the roll, not the clerk, because we found it's much more efficient.
But the clerk has.
And I
inherent
think there
conflict
might
of
be
interest.
ways here, because the clerk has a conflict of interest,
That's true.
picks on certain senators.
I don't pick on nobody.
He treats everybody the same. Okay, so
we need
who is the reporter of this little gem?
Whoever
The chair,
Or whoever
out of
moved.
respect for the
Yeah.
chair, I will defer to you.
Or the person
All right.
who moved the motion, I think.
I hear myself.
Before we finalize this, I think we need to have, I'd like to be on the committee that chooses the color
Chairs.
of the chairs.
I don't think that's part of it.
That's too bad.
You could make an amendment.
Yeah, to make a non-germane,
Why don't you make an amendment on the floor? I'll
To make
support you.
A non-chair amendment chair.
We could do.
all right, committee, I think, we're done. I think it's coming in.
Chair.
thanks for having me, it's
Yeah.
always fun.
I bet it's always a pleasure.